Ashley. This is Tim. We're with Limb Lab in town. We're a prosthetic and orthotic company that is new to the Iowa City area. Newish, I guess it's almost been a year, but we came last July and are excited to be here. So we are just going to give you kind of an overview of what we're about, what we offer. Feel free to stop us at any point if you have questions or something looks interesting and you want to know more. We're happy to do that. We like this to be pretty interactive, so feel free. So I'm going to pass that to you.
Get it started?
Yeah.
So a little history about Limb Lab is it started 9 years ago. We are a Rochester or Mayo-based company, so it kind of has a tendency to follow wherever Mayo goes, but also where Mayo physicians go. And that is kind of why we ended up here in Cornville. So, little fun fact.
So one of the things that we really like to try and focus on is how can we be your easy button. I don't know if you guys remember those commercials, but we want to make the process as smooth as possible for you, for our patients, for our clinicians, everything. So we like to kind of have that communication and collaboration between all of the teams in order to make that happen. And so sometimes it's easy to kind of, get set in your ways of this is how things go, but we like to break that mold a little bit and see if we can work out the kinks, really. We kind of do everything from head to toe, both prosthetically and orthotically. So we're going to kind of go through a little bit of some of those things today. We have 9 offices actually, so I think we're down one on here, but we just opened one in Omaha as well, but we kind of go out, like Tim was saying, through Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and into Wisconsin a little, and then Scottsdale. So something that you may or may not be familiar with are foot orthotics. So we can do a whole kind of gambit of options for that. A bunch of different materials depending on what each person needs. So some of that we do some offloading for wounds, for plantar fasciitis, for comfort, for the whole rigmarole, everything. And so we'll kind of show a few different options, but this is almost a very small sample even of what is possible, because there's so many materials, just every person is so unique. So, and a lot of these we can make in-house. Some of them are 3D printed as well. We've had good success with a good variety of different options. So. And on this one, you can see some of the adjustments that we can make depending on what the diagnosis is. We also do a bunch of knee orthoses, so whether that's osteoarthritis, functional being ACL, MCL injuries, anything like that. The one on the left is like a flexion contracture brace, so it helps kind of stretch you out a little bit if there is a contracture there. The next thing are ankle foot orthoses. So there is a whole array of what those are.
You want me to talk about it? So with AFOs, we do anything from like what you're used to seeing the plastic AFOs to, we're also doing a lot of dynamic. We're trying to implement what we've learned in prosthetics with energy return and giving people motion back into their step. So not only do we have a variety of off-the-shelf type systems, but also we're now starting to do custom even in our own office. And I brought an example of a pediatric version with me today for our patients, but we do them for adults as well. Here's kind of the gamut. We can go anywhere from really low profile to some very high activity type things. The second one from the left here is actually a design that allows people to return back to military duty. And so, and it was designed through the military, so we now get the benefit of that. The other benefit is that here at the University of Iowa, we have one of the best gait labs in the country, because the guy came from the Center of Intrepid to the university. So we can be doing some of that kind of stuff. Am I getting a little too far away from the mic? Sorry.
But you mentioned the university, and yet you're from Mayo. Is there?
We're not Mayo. We're Mayo based because of that, but really we follow the Mayo physicians. So now the university has a fair number of cross training. So it's a connection. And so that's part of the reason why we actually came to this community, because we saw a need and was asked, part of that. So, but back to those kind of things. So not only are we doing carbon fiber, we're also implementing 3D printing. And this is for a pediatric patient who wanted Spider-Man. And so it's a 3D printed foot plate and calf. And it can be scratched, it can be beat up, it'll look like that all the time. We actually brought a foot orthotic and a finger that are 3D printed up on the table. So if you want to see some of the 3D printing that we have capabilities of doing, we can do that. We're back. There's still more. Wow. So again, one of the things we look at is offloading. Here's a system that allows a patient that has like a heel wound or a midfoot arthritis, a system that'll load like what we do with prosthetics. We load the patellar area and the soft tissue of the calf. And that allows them then to stand on this, but still get energy when they take a step. And it's dialed in by patient's activity, weight, those two items. And then we put it into action. This fellow has West Nile virus. It is a progressive disease. He's using carbon fiber to give him his propulsion. Okay. And so he has an AFO on one side, he has a KFO on the other side. That KFO is a stance control. So when he comes onto the toe, it'll unlock. And then as soon as he hits the heel, it locks. And so he can weight bear through it as he takes the step. He doesn't have to automatically unlock it or lock it.
So this next brace is called a C-brace. It takes that microprocessor technology, that's kind of that computer that we use a lot of times in prosthetic care, and translates it to orthotic care. So you can kind of see this brace. This big piece right there, that is that knee joint that uses the microprocessor. So especially somebody who has like quad weakness, then it can be used for them to gain some of that mobility back. LimLab actually is one of 3 manufacturers in the country for the C-brace, so we're pretty excited about that. That's Mitch, he's the guy who's trained in it. It's a pretty rigorous process, so he's pretty good at what he does, so we're thankful for that, but you can see it as a finished product. And then with this brace, because it's such high technology, we like to do trials. So we don't want to just assume that it's going to work for everybody. We want to make sure that it does before we kind of jump right into it. And then what if it didn't work? Then, this person has a brace that's more than they need. And so we did a couple days, we did like a series of 5 or 6 trials, and it worked for a couple people, it didn't work for some, so it was really good. But you can kind of see on this stair video, that's the trial contraption. So it looks a little bit intense, maybe not quite as sleek and nice as the actual brace, but it gives us that chance just to trial it before we make it really customized to fit them. And so this gal, she had COVID and had a lot of post-COVID symptoms and other comorbidities, and has just been having, in general, really like a lot of complications. And so with this trial, she could walk, like that first video was pretty much as far as she could walk, and that was about it. And then as we're doing this trial, she's able to go up and down stairs, do the ramps, walk. We worked her. She walked a ton. And so it was pretty fun just to see the progression that she made with it, even in just the trial.
So, and not only do we do lower extremity, but we also do upper extremity. And one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is problem solving. Here is a locking elbow unit for a contraction. So this gal, she could manage to feed herself and everything if her elbow was locked in a certain position. So I think we have video of her. This is her with the brace on, doing some motions. Otherwise, she couldn't control her arm. So as long as we put it right there, she could do all sorts of stuff with it. Took a little figuring that out, though. Yeah, and she couldn't grasp. If her hand was down here or if her hand was up here, her fingers wouldn't work. So, just things that we try and problem solve. Every patient's different, so we have to kind of create what we want to create based on the patient. And then we do wrist hand orthosis. We had a Cubs fan who loved baseball, and so we made him a way of holding a bat. Kind of cute. And of course, then we do below knee and above knee prostheses. We do try to make them individualized for everybody, and people bring us all sorts of crazy stuff that they want to put on it. Okay, and here's just some of the examples, and of course, somehow a Nebraska Husker thing got in there. I don't understand that.
Oh, like John Deere did.
Oh yeah, that is pretty common around here. So one of the other things that we do is a style of prosthetics that's not available anywhere else in the Midwest. It's called Hi-Fi. It's a casting system that normally it takes a casting stand. We have now come up with a 3D printed version of this that we can just do right on the patient. So if they can't stand, we can actually do it lying down. We've done 4 of them so far, I think, out of our office. And the 2 that we've fit so far have done really well. So we really like it. It's subischial, so it's below their seat so they don't have to sit on a shelf. It's much more comfortable and it prevents rotation.
So this next one is somebody who's either had a hemipelvectomy or a hip disarticulation. So in this particular case of the top 2 left photos, this is a woman we recently saw who she's missing like the whole left side of her hip bone. And she was having trouble walking partially because of her alignment, and then her previous socket just didn't quite grab that area. It's really hard. If you imagine, it's just all soft tissue. There's no bones to really grab onto in her case, and so we wanted to try and get her something that would grab a little bit better, and she's doing great. Tim met with her today, and she seems to be progressing really well. So that's pretty exciting in that case. I think we have a couple of videos So this one, if you can imagine walking in the snow with a prosthesis is pretty hard in general, but particularly with this level of amputation. Um, and you can kind of see it, the socket design is a little bit different sometimes than how they can be for this level of amputation as well. And so we really try and kind of thin down the socket so it's not super huge and bulky, so somebody can still sit, that's important. But also, yeah, to personalize it a little bit. So, and then here, this is on day one with this socket. So that person is walking really, really well. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And one thing we look at, especially in all prosthetic care, but especially with this level of amputation, is you have to kind of look at where your weight line falls, because if it's too far forward, then it's really unstable. And so I don't know if you kind of saw in that video, but it's almost like it kind of curves behind a little bit. That's for stability. And so that's something that can be easily forgotten in this process, but is really, really important. Another thing we do are partial fingers or partial hands. Yeah, this video will kind of go through somebody using that. So there's a variety of different options. Some are more low profile that are just kind of a basic mechanical. Some of them, like this one, is more cosmetic, so it just kind of fills in that space. It's basically suctions on to the rest of their finger, and you can make it really look like the rest of your hand. And then some of these other ones are a little bit more functional. These next ones, you can see in this top picture, this person gets a little bit of both. So the one that's on his hand currently, I believe is 3D printed as well. Not those ones, okay. But then also has kind of that cosmetic one for looks, different occasions, all of that. Something that we as Limb Lab really wants to try and do is fill the gaps. Tim was kind of talking about this before. So unfortunately, one of the gaps in healthcare is affordable fingers. And so we have come up with these ones. That's one of the ones Tim was saying that we have here too. So if you want to see that, we can pass it around, or you can come see it after. But that is a 3D printed finger. So just to bring that cost down for people whose insurance may not cover it or not cover enough of them or something like that. But it just ratchets in place, so you can kind of set it at the position you want and then undo it as well. So just trying to figure out where's the gap, what do we need to do, how do we make that happen. So that was kind of the goal there. Here's a little video. So some of these fingers you can set with just by moving it with your other hand. I think this is another one.
Think of just missing your thumb. And
Just think about not having your thumb. And so we just created a thumb post, but it's movable thumb post. So that way they can move it into place and then use the rest of their fingers to grasp something. But it gave them all their function back. So the top ones, those metal ones that are up there, I just want to talk about those, because those are the premier fingers that came out about 5-6 years ago. Each one of those will hold up to 100 pounds of pressure, but they're like $5,000 each. So that was the problem where we were finding, is that nobody could afford them. It's great to have it, but it doesn't do you any good if we can't afford it, right? So we created the same thing out of 3D printing, and now we have a Medicare allowable for a whole hand for a wrist prosthesis, which it's like $650. It's not a lot, but at least we can now provide it. So, and then we do, as you can see, we really strive in the high level amputations, high level function in orthotics. We're really trying to be that company that looks at those kind of functions. So everything's all about function. So we run anywhere from body power to myoelectric type systems. And kind of can see the top one is somebody that's missing their shoulder. So all of their arm, including the shoulder. And so they can't move their shoulder robotically, but they can position it, and then they can roll the elbow and the wrist and fingers all robotically. Okay, and it's all by muscle myoelectric signal. So, in different ways, we put them together. You can kind of see. One of the other things that LimLab has kind of come about is brachial plexus injuries, so people that have a flail arm. They, at Mayo, they've been amputating the hand, and then they reposition one of the muscles to give elbow flexion, and then they use myoelectric signal to run a hand. And they've been doing quite a few of those, and we're starting to do a lot of the research papers across the country on those. Oh, wow. And now we're done. So, questions. We love talking about what we do, so.
How soon do you fit lower limb prosthesis post-op?
I'm very aggressive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Repeat the question.
They asked how fast do we fit people with lower limb amputation. We try to be involved within as quickly as possible, typically 24 to 36 hours after amputation. And we help manage that swelling. We want to protect the limb. If you have it done at the university, it's a little different process. Sometimes they want to do their own rigid dressings, and we get involved in about 3 to 4 weeks after for people that want to come see us. And then from there, if they've done their job right, I can actually start casting right around 4 weeks. We didn't put any video in. I don't think we have any of nickname. But we just had a fellow, he was amputated January 13th. He got his first prosthesis in before February 15th. Went through therapy and just returned to work as a semi-truck driver 2 weeks ago Sunday. Okay. To me, it's more important to be up and moving, being mobile after amputation. So the sooner we can do that, the better. And that's kind of how we look at it. But the limb has to be healed, and the limb has to be shaped the right way. Otherwise, it's just going to be too painful. So.
What are you doing now?
So this is another thing that even in LimLab, the Coralville and the Des Moines offices are the only two that do this. So what we are doing is actually fabricating a limb directly on a patient's residual limb. So this is a system that came out, it's been around a long time, it's just not been refined. And it finally became a little bit more refined in the last 2 years. And what it is, there's a bladder that goes on to the patient, and then we impregnate a resin through fabric. So that fabric can be either fiberglass, a material called basalt, or carbon fiber. So it's 3 different types of different materials. So this is a lady who's bilateral. In 4 hours, we did the direct socket and had her up and walking. And she traveled a ways, and she traveled by, she had to pay for her transportation to get here. So for us to just do it in one sitting and then send her home it's pretty impressive. So here's another gal from Marshalltown, came, we did her socket. In her case, we got better. We're in an hour and a half now. Okay. From Dubuque. So when people come far away, we try to provide a system that they can actually walk on right away. This works really well for new amputees.
So how far post-op would some of these ladies be?
Well, she's about 2 years out.
How about the bilateral?
The bilateral, one side is 2 years, the other one was about 8 months. But they had legs. They've all had legs prior to this. So, but some of them followed, well, 2 of them followed me, 1 followed Ashley. And this just provided a system that we could go ahead and deliver to them all in 1 trip. So, and then again, we're back to kind of all the different styles that we do. We try and make it breathable, try to make it comfortable and stuff. Go ahead.
What does it take? Education, preparation, etc. What all have you been through to learn to do this?
Well, I'm going to answer it my way, and then I'm going to let Ashley, because I'm old, and so it was different for when I went through. So I actually have a bachelor's degree in agricultural business from Iowa State, but I'm second generation. So I started practicing when I was 16, and here, Iowa City, Davenport, and I'm from West Branch originally. So it's kind of, for me it was a certificate program, but now it's a master's program.
Now that hurts.
Yeah, so the question was what's the education process? How did we get into it as well? So for me, I originally got into the field because I have scoliosis, so I have a curvature of my spine. So I had a brace when I was in middle school, basically. I said I'd never do anything with that ever again, but of course it never goes that way. And so then I actually kind of shadowed in the field a little bit through that process, and then after, which is how I came to know LinLab as well. And then decided, yep, I'm going to do this for school. So my undergraduate degree is in biomedical engineering, and then I went through the master's program in Minnesota. That's where I'm from originally. And then it's a residency after that. I did 18 months of residency, and then a pretty rigorous certification process that Tim has helped make. So I give him a hard time about it, but it is really good and necessary. But yeah, so that's kind of the process there. Good question.
Is there a certain title that your type of work
Mm-hmm.
has?
Yeah, so the question was, is there a certain title that our work has? It's a certified prosthetist orthotist.
I have a brother-in-law in New York State, and I would give anything if he could meet with you folks. He does not travel anymore. But I listen to what they're trying to do for him with his foot and all the things that have happened, and I'm sitting here kind of in awe of the things that you do, and especially when you talk about you custom things for the patient, because I think that's one of the things they've had trouble with, is everything's been kind of standard, and that's not what he's needed. And so I just am very, it's really wonderful that you folks are doing what you're doing. I mean, I came here for a little insert to go in my sneakers, and I'm thinking, holy gee, Joan, you better realize how fortunate you are at this point in your life, because it's amazing to see what some people have had to go through and what you've helped them to do again. Really.
Yeah, it's been a big honor for sure. And every person's different, so we do really want to try and help make that happen and figure out what they need specifically. And even for your foot insert, we would love to do that. Because it's your daily life, and so for some people it can seem like, oh, no big deal, or that's maybe not as big of a deal as some of this, but it is, because that's
Stops me from doing certain things.
exactly.
That's the figure.
Yeah, so Tim just grabbed the finger that we were kind of talking about earlier that's 3D printed. And then that socket that he has is the direct socket. So that's one of the ones that we made right on somebody that day. They actually lost some volume, so they kind of shrunk down from getting some of that swelling out. That's one of the benefits of getting a socket on earlier, is you can kind of get some of that out. And so that was an old one, and we, I don't know if you've heard of hydro dipping, but we took a bucket of water, put some paint in it, and kind of dipped it in there, just to practice to make, some creativity out of it and personalize it a little bit.
I noticed your pictures, most of them had, just like the bar, many people request natural looking prosthetics.
Yes.
They do.
Yeah. They asked if some of them have more of like the carbon fiber look, kind of that black sleek look. But the question was, do sometimes they look a little bit more natural? Yes. We can do a whole array of different things.
Do I need a prescription to come to you in order to have the inserts that I had for many years for my shoes? Or do I just come to you, or how does this work? My daughter said, ask if you need a prescription before you do something.
We are prescription based,
Okay.
but you can always come and talk to us first, because you may find that, or I may tell you something altogether different after I see your feet.
Okay.
Okay. We highly recommend that you at least be seen for an evaluation, and if we think foot orthotic is appropriate, I may find that there might be something off the shelf or something that is different that might be more cost effective. I'm probably going to tell you that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we just make an appointment to come?
Yep. We have a nice young lady that
Saturdays or just during the week?
just during the week. We
Okay.
are there on Saturdays, but I try and not do that
What
at this
are
point.
your hours during the week?
8 to 5.
8 to 5.
But you can see we're here at 7, so
Okay, all right.
you let us know if you need us. We accommodate schedules.
Well, my
So-
daughter would bring me, she can work the schedule. Okay.
So, and when it comes to the cosmetic stuff, there's like skins. There's some that are just off the shelf skins. So we take a swatch and we match up your skin tone, and then we can make the as close as we possibly. They can actually do custom. We would prefer not to go that far, because if they get damaged, then you're like, oh. But I'll talk about that finger a little bit, because that finger is kind of cool. Not only does it bend
It has lots of little kinks in it.
Yep, it'll bend and stuff, but it's also heat transferable, so you can use your cell phone and your iPad and everything. And we've made different tips so that you can actually use like typewriter or whatever. There's all sorts of little tips that'll go along for certain tasks. So, for people.
So you can change those.
Yep, you can change the tips. You can take it on and off. So, pretty cool.
What's he doing in this video?
That's me making the direct socket. So I'm actually laminating. Ashley's off to the side with a pump, and she's pumping resin in. See, that's her hand right there, telling me where I missed. And so now I'm actually blending the resin and impregnating the fabric, and we're going to take it up to close to the trim lines. Okay. And this process, it's 3 minutes for all I have to do. I have to do this in 3 minutes, and then we're going to pop on the bladder, and then we're going to pump that bladder up to 80 millimeters of mercury. And we're going to let it sit for about 4 minutes. And then after that, we're going to kick it up to 100 millimeters of mercury and let it cure for another 3 minutes. So the whole process is 10 minutes. Once that's done, we take it off. And then we trim up. We didn't take video of us trimming and all the other stuff, but this is us putting the bladder on, and then we roll it up into place and pump it up to the pressure. And it's gonna go through a exothermic reaction, and it's gonna get hard. If it gets too hard, it doesn't come off very easily. So we have to take it off at that 10-minute mark. Go ahead.
The University Hospital have their own department, or do you do all theirs?
Right now, it's a private company, even in the university. We would like to say we do all their work, but we don't. They have their own. They have a place in. It's Hanger. Hanger's a national-based company, so they have like 900 and some facilities nationwide.
Do you have students from the biomechanical engineering program work with you once in a while, or?
Yes, we do. So this year we actually had the senior design team. They're actually going to present Friday. Yeah, my week's coming fast.
I wanna ask, do they make noises? Cause this little finger makes a click.
It's just a little click. Yeah. So it's everything that kind of, some things don't make noise, other things do. The click is audible, so patients know where it's at in space. So what they do with the fingers is if it's on a partial hand, they can just hit the table and just position their thing, or they can use their other hand to position, and then they know where it's at. That clicking lets them know, and then when they hit the button, they hear that opening, and then they know. Because they can't feel. So sometimes we use audible to help with those kind of things. Here's some cosmetic stuff. So, one of the things we've been doing lately, and I don't think we have a picture of it, is today what I was busy with was a power knee demonstration or trial. And it was the gal we were talking about, the hemipelvectomy. That knee actually, it does make noise because it's actually got a motor that's making the knee flex. And so she could go upstairs and down ramps, up and ramps, and stuff like that, much easier than she could in the current knee that she was using. So, some of the other things we do. Pretty strong, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
No, you just gotta push the button.
There's a button on the back where,
Down right about
way back.
right there. That little thing is a button.
I see.
Push that, and it'll push down. There you go. Boom. Any other questions? So what we didn't show you is we actually have a robot in our office that we can take 3D models and fabricate out of foam. We can create models out of the foam model. So the robot cuts them. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're actually kind of really working on to see if we can eliminate our plaster room at some point in time. Well, there we go.
Can they play piano when they get the hand back?
Not to the same
I
degree.
get that. I'm pretty sure it's not to the same degree, but this is interesting, very, very interesting.
Thank you. Like I said, I like talking about it, so, because, you know, it's the best job. You get dressed up, you get all messy, and then you go home. You get to be creative, you get to meet people. You know.
But you give hope. I mean, I didn't expect to come here and see what I saw.
Me either.
I came because of my little thing from my phone. But I'm really glad.
It all starts from there.
Yeah,
I'm really glad I did too, yeah.
it's really amazing what can be done, and I think about my brother-in-law, it's amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us. We're going to be here for the health fair, so think of something between now and then.
When is that?
I think it's,
Tuesday, isn't it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. See, I'm a day off.
Oh my.
I remember
Next week,
reading
Wednesday.
next week.
That's great, that's great.
Yeah.
we'd love to see you then too. But thanks for having us tonight. And
You have a card?
we do. We have cards over there if you need them or want them.